Welcome to the Milt Talk Legacy Builders podcast, a place where Milts can connect to one another to inspire, motivate, and collaborate to continue to build a strong and well-connected alumni association. I believe that Milton Hershey School rebranding is actually just getting started, and I want to be part of that journey. I think the best way to commemorate Milton and Catherine Hershey is to continue our own legacy that impacts the world as Milton Hershey so impacted us. I believe the level of extraordinary that each and every Milt carries within them is deeply underestimated, and this podcast will help in the journey to show off what Milts are really made of. I'm excited to get to know more Milts, more insight to their upbringing, and what they're doing now to build their legacy and bring value to others, and what being a Milt really means to them. Today I'm speaking with Jason Wolfe, class of 1987. After putting himself through college, Jason was in a serious accident and had to endure 2 major neck and spinal injuries. While recovering in 1995, he wasn't able to drive, so he decided to teach himself how to write code, which he then went on to build the first online coupon website. Jason was living in his Jeep at that time, but it was due to his circumstance that his interest for technology was born. He built that coupon site to raise $500,000 in VC, got it to 20 million visitors per month, and then sold it to a public company right before the economic burst in 2000. He went on to build another company, Direct Response Technologies, which employed 70 people and tracked billions of transactions per month, which he then sold to another public firm in 2006. In 2008, Jason turned his focus to giftcards.com and built that company to 120 employees and billions in card sales, which again, he sold to a public firm in 2016. Today, Jason is building the next generation's product for the market with 50 current employees. Jason has had several awards over his time, but is most proud of being named the Alumni of the Year for Milton Hershey School in 2014. Wow and wow. Welcome to the Milt Talk Legacy Builders podcast, Jason. And thank you so very much for being my guest.
Zara, it's great to be with you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. So my very first question is, how old were you when you got into Milton Hershey School?
It was 1980. It was, I think a lot of us remember our first day in school, right? So September 20th, 1980. I was 11 years old and it was a cold, brisk fall day. And I could remember being dropped off in Founders Hall. Yeah.
Wow. And were you dropped off by your mom, your dad, both, or who were you dropped off by?
My mom, we didn't, my dad, I was told by my mom had some mental illness. So she told us that he was dead. So we only had our mother and my grandparents. My grandparents were pretty much the people that, watched and took care of us. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So you were 11 years old. What is that? Is that 6th or 7th grade?
Yeah. Just going into 6th grade. Yep.
Okay. Wow. And back then, that must have been quite different. Where did you move from?
So I was in Connecticut.
Okay.
So my mother or my grandmother found out about the school because of a nun at the church that we went to, told her about the school down in Hershey. And we went down there, took the test. At the time, they didn't have enough female student homes. So my sister wasn't able to get in, but my brother and I took the test. My brother, I don't know, maybe he's smarter than I am, but he decided not to pass it, I guess. And I did. And then they brought me down there by myself. So I was in Milton Hershey School for a little over a year, maybe a year and a half before my brother and sister eventually came there.
Okay. And is your brother and sister older, younger? Where do you sit?
I'm middle
Okay.
child.
Okay. Wow. So that's interesting. The middle child, and you went to Milton Hershey first. So how big of a change was that as far as your setting from Connecticut to Pennsylvania?
Well, I'm sure most Milts have those stories, just crazy life. It's, laying on a blanket under, Christmas time with no heat in the house and knock on the door, living with my mother, which I'm not sure why they allowed that to happen, but they did. We had no heat, no gas. Somebody knocks on the door. We look outside. It's Christmas. We see a box on the front porch with a frozen turkey, which we couldn't cook because we had no gas, and a couple games, for kids. And that's the life. It was crazy. Not, my mother had mental illness, and so it was just like up until midnight, nobody really watching us type of thing,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I understand that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us came from, such an upbringing where there was not very much structure, lots of chaos, a lot of dysfunction, and I think we found a lot of solace, even though it was such a crazy shift and a lot of cultural shock and that a lot of different feelings that we go through going into Milton Hershey. I think that it was also a form of like solace for all of us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure most of the Milts have stories. I know a couple of my friends have worse stories than mine. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No comparison. I think every
no,
person has, yeah, their own story. One is
it's
never
true.
worse than the other. It's
It is
all
what
what
it
makes
is.
us what we are today. Yeah. So in
Mhm.
Milton Hershey, did you decide to do sports or were you in any other extracurricular activities?
Yeah, I wrestled from probably, yes, 6th grade all the way through 12th grade. I played football um, all the way through from 7th grade to 12th grade. And then I played baseball from 6th grade all the way through 12th grade. And I was a starter. So 3 sports and yeah, mhm,
Yeah, yeah, you were definitely busy for sure,
very busy.
especially when
And
you started in all those sports. Yeah, my brothers
yeah, yeah.
both did wrestling, so every time I
Ah.
hear from another wrestler, that still excites me till this day.
When
Wrestling
I
is
hire
a tough
people, if I
sport.
see that they wrestled before, if they're going through the interview process and I see that they wrestled and they actually did well, I give them a little bit of a boost because, it's, there's nowhere to escape.
Yeah.
It's one person against another, and you're in tights in the
Yeah.
middle of a mat. And I know the difficulty it is to cut weight and to work out and all that stuff. And so that takes a lot
Yeah.
of mental fortitude.
Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of it, a lot of people think it's physical, but yeah, wrestling is well said. Yeah, mental fortitude. Absolutely. I used to see what my brothers went through, and I always grew up wanting to be exactly like my brothers. So watching them go through that helped me kind of know what to expect.
Yep.
Yeah. So when you once you graduated, and in the 80s, Milton Hershey did not offer scholarships, correct?
Well, they did. They offered some scholarship. I had a partial scholarship, but I was the type of student. I was a good student, so I was in the back then they had sort of um, 10-1, 10-2, 10-3, 10-4. If you're 10-1, you're amongst the smartest kids, okay, in the class. And so that's how it was. That's how we did it. That's how the school did it. And so
Right.
I was in the advanced classes, all the advanced placement classes and so on. But I played sports, but I also had a side of me that was like, I like to sneak out at night and I used to get in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I graduated, I was almost not able to graduate. They actually took my ring from me and they took my scholarship because I was on 30 and 30 like 3 times.
Wow.
And they're just like, listen, it's like 2 weeks before graduation. What are you doing? And I was like, well, and, but so I didn't get a scholarship. I applied for it years later after I was in Bloomsburg for a while. And eventually they did give it to me for the final 2 years of college. But that was a lesson learned right there. Um, not to do something stupid I shouldn't have, but I did.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes we need those hard lessons to kind of pave the way that we end up going. How cool is it that, you were that close to not graduating and then 2014 you become alumni of the year? That is
Well, at the Alumni of the Year dinner, I was able to talk about that, and Mr. Weller was there, and he was one of the people that decided on my fate the last 2 weeks of being in Milton Hershey, whether I was going to get kicked out or not, because they thought about it. And so, as you go through life, it's a journey, and ups and downs, and you either learn from something or you wallow in it and
yeah,
become a victim. And I'm not a victim, so it was all fun to go and look back at it and talk to the people that were involved in that at the time.
yeah, that is
Anybody can, I said, anybody can make it, man. I'll tell you what, if I was on 30 and 33 times and all the stuff I did, it was like, all right, you know, there's hope.
yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I very much like you, and one of my brothers was the same way. We definitely had, for myself, I definitely had always had an issue with authority, but I did well with authority that took a mentorship approach as opposed to authority that took a just do it because I said so approach. But I think, some of the smartest people or most creative people who like to think out of the box and have a lot of, stuff to them, I think that happens a lot. Like we do question a lot. We do a lot of bad things. I think we need a lot of challenge
Yes.
um, before we
Yeah, I'm feeling
finally.
better about myself now.
Yeah, totally. So, what did you decide to study in college?
So eventually I get my act together. I graduated with a suitcase of clothes, $100, sat on a curb, wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I ended up popping around. I went to Temple for a semester, and then I eventually went to Bloomsburg and focused on business. Um, I wasn't really serious. I played football at Bloomsburg. I wasn't really totally focused on college. I was more focused on things that are not relevant to college. But I did. I got a degree in business. Graduated in 1992. And then I took a few months and drove across country and camped and checked out the country and came back, and I lived down in sort of West Virginia area, Western Maryland, became a whitewater raft guide, and lived out in the outdoors life for 3 or 4 years. Yeah.
Very cool. That is awesome. Very much
Yeah.
like that movie, The Wild. That was a pretty great movie if you haven't seen it, or documentary.
Yep.
Wow. So, and then I saw in your bio that you did have a very serious accident. Was that after that time that you did the cross country trip?
Yeah. Yep. About 1995, I was in an accident and had some spinal surgeries, multiple spinal surgeries, nose surgery, a whole bunch of stuff. And at the time, I was with a girl that her and we broke up. She was sort of the only source of income to pay rent.
Mhm.
So I had to figure out where am I going to go because I'm living at that time I was up in Pittsburgh. So I left Deep Creek in Maryland. I was in Morgantown. I moved up to Pittsburgh, and her and I broke up. I had nowhere really to go. I had no family here in Pittsburgh. So, but I had a vehicle. So I used to go down these little streets and sleep and get up and go to a friend's house who he let me use a little corner of his place, and I would work all day. And I was trying to create the software for couponing. I was teaching myself how to code, and I did that. I worked, 18-hour days to teach myself to be a coder, and I created the first coupon site in 1995. And I think the first year I made like $4,000, and then 1997 it was like 30, and then 180, and then a million, and then raised a bunch of money and sold it to a public company. And then I was on the 6 o'clock news because it was crazy. It was like, here's this guy, grew up in Milton Hershey School and built this company. And the girl that I broke up with and she saw me on TV there, I think. And so we got together. And it was like, hey, look what happened to me. And she was crying. I was like, yeah, you're crying. See what you missed out on. But she
Yeah.
was crying. She was crying because she felt happy for me because she wasn't sure what happened to me.
Yeah.
And so it was really a good thing for me to go through because we became friends, and she actually brought me to the church that I go to today.
Wow.
So I started going to the church because of her, which
Wow.
was she was the one that broke, yeah. So who knows who's in your life? You don't know what's happening. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's true. I think God uses us in ways that we would never even imagine for someone else. So that was,
Yeah, and she was when I was with her, she was Jewish. So
yeah,
she was Jewish, and I was Catholic, but I wasn't practicing. And then we broke up, and all this stuff happened, and I'm on the news. And then I get back together with her. She's like, "Yeah, you got to go to this church with me." I was like, "Church? You don't go to church?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm a Christian now." I was like, "What?" Not only is she a Christian, she introduced me back to church again, which made a huge difference in my life over the last 20 years. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I do see that on your social. I follow, you and your family quite a bit because I love what you guys represent. So faith for you, once she brought you back to church and you started to go down that journey, faith for you is a big deal. It's a big foundational source for you.
That's right. That's
Great.
right. Yeah. So I came to Christ at the time and decided that I was gonna change my life and do the things that I was promising that I was going to do, and I didn't initially. I was the last in church and first one out and sat in the back until probably 2006. And the pastor of the church saw me and tapped me on the shoulder, said, "Hey, you should be in a men's group." So I said, "Well, I don't know." So I joined this men's group, and I was part of this men's group. And then I can remember the first meeting of the men's group. They said, "Well, what do you want to learn?" I said, "I just want to learn how to pray out loud, like talk, like pray."
Yeah.
And it was a simple request, but I wanted to do that. And fast forward, 3 years, 4 years later, I was doing mission trips. I went on 3 of them to Haiti. Not only was I able to pray, I was able to knock on doors and pray. And you probably don't know this, but I actually did the service at Milton Hershey School in front of 3,000 students, and I gave the Sunday message, which was like, God answered a prayer for sure in many ways. Because I was down and out, and I still am, struggling with it daily, so I struggle every day.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. And that's such a great testimony. I'd like to really go in a little bit deeper on that, if you don't mind. When you say you
Sure.
struggle every day, do you think that is like a mental health struggle, or is it struggling with the trauma that you've endured? What type of struggle is it?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't look at it that way. I look at it that, and this is biblical, this is Christian based. I believe we're all sinners. I believe that we needed a savior to come down, and God gave a message to us through Jesus Christ and told us what we should be doing. We should be loving each other, and we should be honoring God. And those are the only two things we should do. But in reality, is because we're broken, we don't do that. We have anger, we have jealousy, we have all kinds of, you have ego, we have all kinds of sins that we commit, I believe, all the time. And so it's a constant struggle, and it's never ending. For me, it's not a mental illness thing. I do understand mental illness. I grew up with it. So I don't discount that. But for me personally, it's not that. It's more about just being a broken person
Yeah.
and knowing that I'm broken, and then trying to improve myself through my faith.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really great. And that sense of self-awareness, I think, is number one. A lot of people don't even reach that point of self-awareness to then say, listen, we're all broken, I'm broken, and the way that I fix it is going to be, through my faith. That's awesome. That's really inspiring. I myself grew up Muslim, and I converted to Christianity, I want to say in like 2014 or something like that.
No
Um,
kidding.
so that was very different for me too. Yeah, I grew up very devout Muslim, prayed 5 times a day,
Wow.
and then made that change. Same thing. Just saw the brokenness, saw how my husband was Christian at the time, and I just kind of saw his lifestyle and peace that he had, and the sense of you know we are all human. We're all exactly what you just said, which is so funny.
Yeah.
We all
I
fall
have I have a
short. God
friend.
loves us anyway.
I have a friend. His name's Tunch Ilkin. He used to play for the Steelers. He's out here, and he was Muslim, and he grew up as a kid in Turkey.
Yeah.
Eventually became a football player, played for the Steelers, and he tells about the journey of him going from being a Muslim to a Christian, and it's just inspiring for me to hear his stories. But I look at it as, we're made in the image of Christ. We're creators, and we could either look at things that come into our lives as challenges and we're looking for coaches, or you could have the opposite thought and you could look at yourself as a victim, and you're looking at things that are in your life as persecutors, and you're looking for a rescuer like alcohol or some other dysfunction. And so you have two ways that you can look at life. And I read a book called The Power of Ted that describes that, and it's called the DDT. It's a thought pattern that if you live in this victim, persecutor, rescuer mentality, which, hey, listen, I grew up that way. And until I realized, hey, listen, God created me in his image to be a creator, and I'm looking at things as being challenges, and I'm looking for coaches to help me through those whole life changes. So I do, Zara, I do give a lot of my credit, all of my credit, to my faith. And I feel as though part of my story is to explain that to people. I had somebody who applied for an HR position with me recently, and she said, geez, Jason, you put some of this stuff out there. Why do you do that? I said, well, because if I could tell one person my story and it makes an impact on them, great.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to coach people. I'm not trying to rescue anyone. I'm
Yeah.
trying to coach them because they're creators, and I want people to realize that. So, yeah, you're right, Zara. I mean, my faith and the things that you see online are part of who I am, and that I'm not going to bury, and I'm not embarrassed by it. So,
Yeah, and honestly, it's beautiful. My motto in life is faith, family, business, and everything I consume and everything I put out, I hope to give value in those areas. So thank
that's
you
awesome.
for always giving value in those areas, because that's big. It's not just
Yeah.
about financial success and what we can show off. It's also about how we're living, what kind of family are we building? What are our value systems? The good that we can to give to people so that they can also live a good, fulfilled type of life.
Absolutely. Well
Yeah.
said. Very well
Yeah.
said. Yes, I
Thank
agree with
you.
that.
So do you think you always knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or was that something that happened in your Jeep?
Oh, that's a good question. I think growing up, Milton Hershey was my idol. I really just loved his story. I loved what he did. I still have his statue on my desk. I um, I could remember the word entrepreneur when I was in high school. And I thought about that's what I liked. I liked it. Hey, I like that. I want to like be my own boss. I want to do my own thing. I want to create something in the world. And although I didn't know what it was, I felt like I wanted to be that, but I didn't know what that really was because in the 80s, people really didn't talk about entrepreneurs that much.
Right. Right.
But I explained to people what it means to be an entrepreneur today. It's and people go to college to try to learn it. I'm saying, I'm not sure you can learn it. I think it's really inside of you. I mean, do you have this inside of you? And what is it? What is it? Well, I mean, it's sacrifice, it's persistence, it's some of the mental fortitude we talked about. It's a lot of the things that you can't just learn in college. You can't learn it. And I say to people, do you want to be what I call a big E entrepreneur or a small E entrepreneur? A small E entrepreneur, there are plenty of those, and that's okay. We need those. A pizza shop owner could be an entrepreneur, but if you're going to try to make a difference in the world, that's a big, and that takes a lot of commitment. So you have to decide what type of entrepreneur do I want to be? If you have the capabilities of being mentally there and all the things I talked about with sacrifice, then the next question is, what type of entrepreneur do I want to be? Do I want to own a landscape business? Well, that's great. You're an entrepreneur. You're going out and building something, small business owner. Or do you want to create the cure for cancer? I mean, the cure for cancer is going to take you 18-hour days straight, and you're going to sacrifice. Something's going to give. You're going to lose something in your life in order to give something to society. And so, um, I think sometimes schools mislead people saying,
Yeah.
hey, do you want to be the next so and so, Steve Jobs? Well, I'm not sure that's something that you can teach.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree. And I think generationally things are changing completely. I mean, I know for sure, maybe not for sure, but most likely, especially if things were to stay the way they are now, definitely not encouraging my daughter to go to college. I think, way before she gets in her teens, I already want her to have an entrepreneurial mindset.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And
nice.
that comes from someone who has lots of degrees. I got 2 masters, and I can because I get a lot of pushback sometimes when I say that. A lot of people right away, no, oh my gosh,
Oh,
that's
I know.
and I'm like, no, but wait, I think I can say that because I've gone down that path also. And then I've also gone down the entrepreneurial path. So I've seen both. And I don't knock, universities or going to college. If you want to be a doctor or an engineer, absolutely, you're going to need some schooling. But I think generationally, these new kids are so expressive. They're so creative. They're thinking out of the box so much sooner than we ever could or did. There's so much more resources out there. Number one, you're in the field of technology. So I think it would be doing them a disfavor to push that same mindset of go to school, get a job, go to school, get a job. Because we've seen the majority of people who went to school, got a normal average job, are now struggling in their retirement. I see it every day because I'm in financial planning. So I see exactly the root and the cause and the journey that these people went
Yeah,
on to.
yeah, yeah. I think a lot of parts, I think people were misled to think that they had to go get a college degree, get into huge debt, that you had to try to get out from under as you work for a company, and that's fine and everything, and I think people should do that if that's what they do. If they don't, but if they have the capabilities to go create something on their own, they should. By the way, it's an equalizer.
Yeah,
You build a product, they don't care what color your skin is, what gender you are. If you do a great job building that product, people will buy it.
yeah. Yeah,
That's it.
absolutely. I love Shark Tank because it shows little things like, I don't know if you've heard of the squatty potty, but it was such a simple, simple thing. It was a joke in the very beginning. It was like a little YouTube funny vlog. And then next thing you know, the product takes off and is $1 billion product. I have one, my entire family has one in their home. Like it's ridiculous.
That's
But
cool.
it's true. I mean, you created a coupon, and I'm so curious, what made you decide coupon website?
That's a good question. It wasn't something that you like somebody that's mid-20s, that's a whitewater raft guy living in, in the woods would be doing because it's kind of
Yeah.
crazy. But I looked on the internet and I was trying to think of something to do. And right before my accident, I had this idea of going from video store to video store and convincing the video store owners to put coupons inside their video cassettes. But back in the day, Blockbuster and the rest of them would rent video cassettes. And so you go to Blockbuster, you get a video cassette, and inside there, I was convincing the local businesses to put coupons inside the video cassettes. So coupons were kind of on my mind at the time. And so after my accidents and I couldn't drive, actually didn't even have a car after somebody stole that, I had to figure out what to do. So coupons were on my mind and I searched it around the internet and I was like, there's nobody doing this. Like I created the first one. So it was like an opportunity that I think was because of what I was working on at the time. I can kick myself sometimes because not that I haven't been successful, but I remember a site was like there was a dating site that just come started and like domains were free. You could do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
It was like, but I chose coupons. And
Yeah.
then I got into the gift card business and gift cards have been very good for us. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. 2020 is always, the best vision or hindsight, whatever that saying is. But you go back and you say, you're successful, but you go back and you're like, wow, the
ah,
opportunity that was
could have
out
had
there
that
at
one.
that time. Yeah.
It's
And it's
true.
true because at that time things were moving so much slower and
Mhm.
now things are so fast paced. It's entrepreneurship in general has just become so much more competitive, more resources, but more saturated and more competitive for sure.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So after we sold our company, so I did build giftcards.com up. Giftcards.com is the biggest gift card business on the internet today. They're doing over $1 billion a year in sales. Okay, so it's highly successful. But my non-compete was over,
yeah,
and so in 2019,
yeah,
um, so I decided to get back into it, but more or less trying to fix something that was broken.
yeah.
The gift card itself is being used in prostitution, child trafficking, all kind of criminal activity because it's a non-traceable form of currency. And people don't realize it, but it's true. If you think about it, wow, there is currency out there that nobody's tracing and no tracking. Like
Yeah.
at least on dollar bills, they're tracking it and they have mechanisms, but in with gift cards, there's not. So the card itself hasn't changed in 25 years. And so I decided I invented and I have 11 patents around a concept to deliver to you, Zara, a gift that would be linked to the Visa card that's in your pocket. So when you go swipe your Visa card at the place that I bought you a gift for, we would see the transaction and credit your card with the gift. So you won't have to carry a gift card. You don't have to remember anything. You just basically go use your current Visa or MasterCard. And when you swipe it at the merchant place, we see the transaction, credit your card with that amount. That idea, although it sounds simple, it took me 1,058 days to convince Visa to do it with me. They were like, no, no, no. I was like, come on, you don't know I'm a persistent guy. You're never going to get rid of me. Eventually, they said, yeah, okay, we'll do a pilot. So we got them to approve it. We're out there and we're selling it. We also started to produce the Visa and Mastercards again, like we did before. We went from nothing, zero to 12 million in 2019, 30 million last year. This year on pace for 100 million. So, we are out there competing again. I do see it a little differently now. I do see a lot more competition. I see things moving quicker. And I thought maybe it's just because I'm getting older. I can't see as much. I'm half deaf. I actually have a cochlear implant, so I can't hear. So I'm like, maybe it's my age, but you know what, Zara, you might be right. I think people have access to information so much faster today than they did 20 years ago. So if you had access to information 20 years ago, you were so far ahead of everybody. But today, most people have that. So it is
Yeah.
seemingly more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely don't think you're slipping in any way. I really think it's so much more access. So many more people in the world are considering entrepreneurship. So that area has just become more saturated, thus more competitive,
Yes.
for us. But I love that you're always growing and that you haven't yet said, you know what, I think I'm done. I've had my success and which is totally fine. That would be okay to do. But I love that you just keep going on to the next thing, more ideas, and staying competitive, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think this time I did this time around, I like my younger self, I wanted to do it to be successful financially and to maybe internally prove that I can do it. Um, just like you're on the mat and you're wrestling and you want to win. It's like I wanted to prove that I can do this. And so I've sold 4 companies over the years. Um, it became less and less about the money and the success. It's now become more about changing something that's broken. Like I see the gift card broken, and I think it's just redemptive. We talked about Christianity recently, like just a few minutes ago, and that we're broken, and that there's something redemptive about trying to fix something that's broken, and that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to make a social difference that if I'm able to do it, could make an impact on society. That's more important to me than the money. And I think looking at my mentor, my idol, Milton Hershey, it was,
Mm,
although we all celebrate his philanthropy, we do.
mm,
He was a business person. He was an entrepreneur. And
yeah,
so at the end of his life, he gave his fortune to us to allow us to have an opportunity. So I think that's something that I'm obligated to do.
yeah, absolutely. And I love that you think that way, because it really is about giving back as much as you can. My brother always, and I look up to my brother so much, and you remind me so much of him. It's incredible. But he always grew up saying, you got to be a giver, 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 giver of your money, giver of your information, giver of your value, giver of your kindness. And it's always stuck with me even later in life. And I've seen it now in what other people say, what pastors say, what I've read in books. And I'm like, it just validated, the universe also gives back to you as you plant seeds and you
It's
do
true.
give. It's a very,
That's right. I
balanced.
need to meet your brother. I need to meet your brother.
You really should. Honestly, I think you two have so much in common. He is he is in California, but and he would be totally down to do a trip with you or something like that, because he's
Nice.
very outdoorsy, very
Yeah.
competitive,
Oh yeah.
really great guy, great family guy. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Cool.
So how in this time of COVID, lots of changes, lots of different things, has that impacted your businesses at all?
We were sort of lucky in a way. When the pandemic kind of started, we scaled back. I got nervous because I've lived through the year 2000 when the bubble burst. I lived through the year 2008 when the economic crisis happened. Then I felt like, oh, here we go again. So we had made some cuts internally. I had to figure out what to do because the gifter product, the one that I was telling you about, the next generation gift, we planned on launching it locally. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Chicago, um, Charlotte. We had these cities all lined up, and we had events lined up to go and do citywide tours. So in Pittsburgh, we had 300 merchants signed up, and we had a PR firm ready to go, and we had a location that we were going to do this event and media coverage, and that was in May. It was in March, and that couldn't happen because you couldn't go to restaurants anymore. I was like, oh man, now what?
Mm,
So we pivoted and we changed Giftja to not only be for local merchants, but also for national merchants. So we started to press on national merchants. We signed up 300 national merchants. Now you can get Dunkin' Donuts and you can get Amazon and you can get all kind of other merchants that you could link your Visa or MasterCard to, which if it wasn't for the pandemic, we would never have done.
wow.
So it's changed us a little. We retracted, but in reality is that we ended up growing significantly. I just told you the numbers. And the employees, I actually took everybody's salary down and I let some people go. And what I ended up doing was like, hey, listen, I'm taking your salary back up in October, back up to 100%. Plus, I'm going to take all the past money that we decrease your salary. I'm going to pay that back to you too, because we are doing well and people are buying more gift cards digitally and gifting digitally than they are going to the stores.
Yeah.
And so I think the pandemic has helped companies like ours.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've not heard yet. I've heard about all the different pivots companies have had to make, but then every single time there was a silver lining and then there's growth and the change has been good. So it's awesome how that happens. Life can happen either to us or for us. It all just depends on how you look at it and how you react when it happens.
That's right, Zara. You got it.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think has been of all this time? And I know you probably had challenge after challenge. My brother also, by the way, is an entrepreneur, both of my brothers. So I've seen the challenges that he's gone through, both family, marriage, kids, finances, living in a tobacco shop of his. I mean, to extreme success, and then all the changes personally, yeah, how he's grown as a person along the way. I was able to see all that. And me becoming an entrepreneur is really all because of him. But what do you think has been your biggest challenge so far?
Oh, the biggest challenge as being an entrepreneur, I think back is like living in the car. I was just like, having been very active and healthy and outdoorsy, and I was probably 210 pounds and worked out a lot, to then having those surgeries and getting down to like 160 and being like skinny and like unhealthy, living in the car, just depressed. To come from there to get out of that was the biggest challenge. That was a huge challenge. Yeah, for sure.
And that definitely takes, when we experience something physically that kind of shows us how, you know, fragile we really are, I think mentally, it also does something to us, and can really put us down for a while mentally. And I'm glad that used your mental energy to learn how to code, and then, start the journey of building that website, instead of, putting more of that mental energy towards, being down on yourself for your injuries.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Goes back to what we talked about just a few minutes ago, being a creator or being a victim. You could choose.
Yeah,
Which one do you want to be?
absolutely. And I going back to the um that gifting business that you have for this next generation's product. When you talk about when you were you those 1,000+ days that you talked to Visa, did you approach with that, crusade kind of marketing? Because looking at it's such a great marketing. People are so into getting behind something good, a good cause, and especially now fighting trafficking. I would have never even thought of not being able to track gift card transactions and all. I would have never even thought about it. Have
Right.
you talked to Visa about that? Has that been part of your approach to them?
I find that a lot of times companies are looking at dollars and cents.
Yeah.
How much volume are you going to be able to do with this new business idea? And since it's a startup, it's like it's risky for Visa to put their name on it.
Yeah.
Even though I did billions of dollars of sales of their Visa product with the co-branded Visa cards that we used to sell with people's photos on them. So they knew who I was. They knew the cause behind it. I think it was risk. It's like, okay, it's risky because you're allowing peer-to-peer transactions between two people. What's the money transmitter licensing laws? All these complicated things I had to get resolved. So I did have to go out and do a whole bunch of work.
Yeah.
So I did get a lot of the concerns, which were risk and stuff resolved, to then get them to feel comfortable. And of course, I am pledging everything I own to
Awesome.
it. So if anything happens, they basically take everything I got, which is fine.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I was just a regular startup person with nothing that they would have done it. Um, but I did it. And so I think, you know, they're going to turn out to be a great partner. And Zara, we're not ready yet for prime time. What happens a lot of times, the overnight success takes 6 years to happen. The overnight success everybody hears about, wow, this is successful. It happened overnight. No, no, no. There was like 6 years of planning and preparation, all this stuff. So even though gift is out there and we're selling it, we're not even really promoting it yet heavily because we have to work out some kinks still.
Yeah.
Like we just signed on Amazon. We're inches away from having Walmart on there, and we need to get Starbucks, and we had to do some things with the technology, make it a little faster and easier. But once it is, yeah, then I think people like Visa will get behind it. We're talking to two of the largest. There's five of the largest banks in the country. Two of them are talking about using our platform, and we talk about the causes of the platform, and that makes them even more excited about it. So I think because it's being tested and proven now, people will start getting behind it because it's tested and proven.
Right. And I think the end consumer is is that person that gets behind the cause. Like buy this way as opposed to buying this way because this way is more trackable than this way. And then I think when we talk about gift cards not being able to be tracked and people using them for trafficking, all the good doers and people who love to get behind causes are like, yeah, we're gonna get it this way then instead of this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once we get this, I think we're probably 4 months away. Four
Wow.
months from now, I think some of the hurdles that we have as a company will be overcome. And I think then going into the fourth quarter, into the holiday, we'll start pressing it. And I think in the next year or two, you'll start hearing more about it. You'll be like, hey, oh. And then I predict that you're going to log into your bank account and you're going to see this new concept of gifting to each other that gets credited to the cards that they already have at the bank. You're like, oh, well, behind all of that is our platform, our technology. So it may not have our name on it, but we're going to be powering all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. What does your day to day look like?
Well, we get up with the kids. There's kids in this house now. We have four of them. Um, my wife does most of the work, and we have somebody that helps us, Lisa. She does a lot of work in the morning. But, we see the kids off to school, and I go to work. And then I work all day. And I don't get up from my chair literally all day. And then 6 o'clock, I drive home, and then I play with the kids. I go to the gym. They come in there and they think they're working out and they're just jumping around and running around. They're not really doing anything. And then, read to them, tuck them in, go to bed, grab my wife, watch some TV and relax and go to sleep and do it again.
Yeah.
But that's during the week, we have a house on a lake. I like to go boating. We go snowmobiling. We go skiing. Anytime that we're not working and here at the house, I like to be out doing stuff. So we have an RV. We're down in a area in West Virginia camping over this past weekend. So I like to be outside doing things. Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. So I know in the beginning, your 18-hour days and things like that. When did you get married? When did you meet your wife?
So I've been married twice. So the first wife, I met her in 2003, and I met her in March, and I was married in July,
Wow.
and we didn't know each other.
Yeah.
She had gotten pregnant, and I was feeling like, oh, I better marry her, and it was the wrong decision because we were just not the right people for each other. And so that didn't last long. I was in a very short marriage. But then I got remarried to my current wife, and we've been together for 9 years. We've been married for 4 years, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. And I did see on your social that you recently have a new addition to the families. And you told me earlier, so you guys have adopted children,
Mhm.
which is phenomenal. That has definitely inspired me because that's something that my husband and I are definitely considering. And the sister, like I said before, she's, we have someone in the family who's adopted. So I'd love to hear more about that. What made you guys first decide to go down the adoption route?
Well, that's a good question. So, I personally, I can't speak for my wife, but for me, um, as a kid, my grandmother would say to me, "Jason, you're going to have 5 kids. You're going to have a big family." I said, "Yeah, I'd love to. I always wanted a big family." Well, as circumstances had it, it wasn't happening. I was in my 40s. I had one child, and it didn't seem like it was going to happen. But I always wanted a big family. And so when I met my current wife, I said, listen, I want to adopt, I want more children. And she was agreeable to it. So, we adopted 3 children. I'm also on the board of the Pennsylvania statewide adoption network manager. It's called Voce. And there's 15,000 children in Pennsylvania that are in foster care, looking for homes. And so being on the board and seeing what's happening there, I felt like I wanted to not just be there to talk about it, but also to be a part of that, to try to make a difference. So um, and of course, Zara, I mean, look, we grew up in Milton Hershey School. Like we've been given a lot, and so if I've been given a lot, I need to give some back. And so taking 3 children that may not have had an opportunity. Hey, listen, before Milton Hershey School, I had no opportunity. And giving them an opportunity is living out the legacy of Milton Hershey. So in some respects, I feel like it's doing what Milton Hershey did for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. I really can't even say enough about it, to be honest with you. It makes me very happy, because it's true. There's so many kids out there that need a better upbringing, that just need love and a nurturing environment. I mean, it's devastating how many kids are out there that need a better life. So thank you to you and your wife for doing that
Yeah.
for those kids.
Pennsylvania, 15,000, United States, 400,000.
God, wow. It's
Yeah, it's big.
heartbreaking. And the foster care system is so hard. I know a lot of foster care parents. So I hear all the stories and all the things that those kids have to go through. And I myself, a lot of my siblings ended up in foster care as kids, from time to time. So I've witnessed the foster care parenting situation and all the different homes that we got shuffled around to, and how we were split up. And it's incredibly traumatizing and hard. So I have a soft spot for kids who get adopted and people who adopt those kids. So again,
Well,
thank
Zara, if you let me talk to your husband, maybe I can convince him, and then you
you.
guys can start doing some adoption too.
That would be amazing. Yes. So my brother and my husband. I'll introduce you
Oh,
both.
your husband, yes, the both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. He definitely, he doesn't quite understand it. He's an only child. So and I come from a family of 7. But he just is very big on the medical part, and just the new person and all those things, which
Well,
I think a lot of people fear naturally. But
of course they do. And if I could talk to your husband or even to you, it's like I would definitely give you some advice.
yeah,
There are some places to be concerned about for sure, but there are some places that you don't have to worry about that may be something that you've been worried about. And as somebody like yourself who's been through foster care or actually have siblings through it, you understand that it's traumatic, it's crazy. It's like, oh my goodness, it's a hard thing to deal with. I get a little bit sad when I look and see um, the charities that are out there, and it's like, okay, we give money to the ASPCA, which is to help dogs, which I love dogs, by the way. I've had dogs almost my whole life. But when I am asked, where do you give money to help children? Nobody can give me an answer. I said, well, we have all these things to help animal rescue. And I said, what if I just wanted to help the 15,000 kids that are in foster care? Where do I give money for that? And there's nowhere. It's just amazing that there's not. So if you decide to, if you think about it and pray about it, and it's something that you decide it's on your heart to do, man, I would be happy to sit down and talk to you and your husband and
yeah,
figure out some path for you for sure. Because I think your 4-year-old daughter, I think you have 4-year-old
yeah,
daughter,
yeah,
would love to have a little brother,
yeah.
2 or 3 years younger than her. That she could be the big sister too, to show how to be an entrepreneur like her
Yes,
mom.
yes. Thank you so much. And yes, I would love that. I will definitely let him know, and we will set that up sooner than later, because I that's definitely been something that's on my heart. And it really is amazing how God, again, uses people and puts people in your path, that you need and that you've been praying for. So I definitely appreciate that very much. Yeah.
There might be a
So
reason why we're talking. Who knows?
yes, absolutely. And I do believe we will get there. And I think we'll be looking back on this conversation. I'm going to save this video so we'll look
Save it.
back on it and say, this is the conversation
Oh,
that
that's so
started it
fun.
all. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My daughter tells me every day, it's so funny. She's like, okay, I want a baby. So what do we need to do to bring home a baby? Can we go buy one? And I'm like, doesn't exactly work that way, but every day it's the same thing. Okay,
But
mommy.
Zara, how
Very
cool would it
serious.
be that you can have your daughter involved in helping in the process of identifying a child? I mean, that's rare because it usually doesn't happen when you just have a natural born child,
Yeah.
for the child to have any input at all. But with this, she would have input. I mean, that
Wow.
would be awesome.
That would be awesome. Yeah. I'm already definitely excited about the process. I've seen it, through my sister. But I was young at that time also and didn't quite understand or grasp, the bigness of the situation. So
Mhm.
it's incredible. It really is. When I saw that on your social, I shed a couple tears because I was
Aw.
so excited about the whole situation. Yeah. What you're doing, it really is. I don't think people people understands it enough to see the impact, and the need. It's kind of like, fighting world hunger. I mean, these kids are struggling. It's a
Yeah.
tough system, and more people need to know about it. Like, it's not even
It's
talked
true.
about enough. It really
So
is
true. I know. I
incredible.
know.
And there's so many people out there who have so much to give, both financially, mentally, structure wise, loving their families that are just living average have so much to give to these kids. Yeah. Yeah. We can
Absolutely.
talk about it forever.
All the kids need is they just need a home, and they need a place that they could say is their home. Because as the foster care kids, they travel from house to house with a green bag, and inside the green garbage bag is all their belongings, and they
Yeah.
can't call anything home because they don't have a home,
Yeah.
you know.
It's so heartbreaking.
It
It
is.
really is. And mentally, I've seen what it does to these kids. And like, it just is so, it's heart wrenching to
It is.
know what,
And if you're in foster care for your whole childhood, I mean, just imagine yeah, you say mental baggage that they have to carry with them because they feel like not only did their family abandon them, society did too. Nobody wants them, you
no,
know?
yeah. And I think innately, like, that what makes us human is to this feeling of self-belonging, like belonging to something, belonging to a family, belonging to a place, belonging, to a people. And not having that, I think it's got to be so tough. It really
Mhm.
does. Yeah. Yeah. With that said, what two pieces of advice do you think you would give to your younger self?
I would probably tell myself as a younger person, listen, health is very important. The keys to happiness are good health and a bad memory. So if I was younger, I'd say those are the two keys to happiness, Jason. Just be healthy and don't remember anything because then you don't have grudges against people.
Yeah.
And I think the health thing for me, I had the surgeries I had two surgeries on my spine, my neck. Um, the second one was unnecessary because they left something in there. And then, I had to go back in. It's like,
Wow.
and then I had an ear problem, and then I ended up going deaf. I have a cochlear implant now,
Mm.
and that was because of a doctor. I think, as a youngster, I would have said, listen, don't think that doctors are gods. If a doctor's looking at an issue you've got, go get other opinions
Yeah.
and then think about your own body and your health. That's paramount. Don't just trust somebody because they have a DR next to their name. They're just as they put their pants on the same way you do. And I think myself as a child didn't look at the medical world that way. I felt like, well, that's a doctor. They know what they're talking about. That's not true.
Yeah.
I would give myself advice to, if you're going to get your body touched by anybody, because again, you have to be healthy, make sure the person that's going to cut you open is the very best at what they do.
Yeah.
That's a key advice I give to anybody today. And I don't think we think about it. People don't talk about it. Well, that's what the doctor said. Don't worry about it. Get 5 opinions.
Yeah. Yes. That's absolutely 100% accurate. My mom went through an operation in her, I think, 40s, and they decided to just cut her all the way down when it could have been such more simple, but they went the higher money route. And they too left something in there, and then they had to redo it. And now the scar tissue on top of
See?
scar tissue. Yeah, and now she's like 74 and just has
Aw.
constant pain in her side
Aw.
back. Yeah.
See?
And it's that,
See?
yeah, yeah. And uh my husband and I, he's very much that way. I used to call him naive, but he hates when I do that. So I try to stay away from that word. But he very much believes, if you are in a position of authority, then you must know what you're talking about and you are to be trusted in every way, whether that's, doctors, police officers, lawyers, whatever. He 100% trusts because you have that position that, we should not argue back or anything like that. And we had a very bad miscarriage once. We had gone into the ER and, they did a quick checkup and, they sent me home bleeding outrageously. And I told them, and that had been like our fifth miscarriage. So by then I knew what my body was doing and what it was going to continue to do if they hadn't done something to stop it. And I told the doctor, like, no, just keep me overnight. If you're not going to do this DNC, keep me overnight. I have good insurance, and he just kept wanting it to get me out so he could fill the bed with someone else. And My husband
Terrible.
was getting a little irritated because he doesn't want me to argue with authority. And he's like,
Right.
let's just go. They know what they're talking about. 3 hours later at home, passed out cold,
Oh,
almost died. Yeah,
and you had another miscarriage?
we had yeah, we were having the miscarriage
Oh
during
my
that
God.
time. It was happening,
Oh,
and I was just bleeding out, and my husband had gone to sleep, and I went to the restroom one last time and just kaput right in the hallway. And I think we had tile floors, so my husband must have heard the plank. And I think I also tried to say his name as I was passing out. But he ran out and he's like, oh, and now I could see the fear, complete fear in his face because I was white. I mean, I went from being brown to white. And he just said, "You're so white. Oh my God, what should I do?" And I'm like, call 911. And the ambulance came. The lady and the man were shocked to even see me. The lady's like, just, do you mind if we just carry her to the van? We don't have time for the stretcher. We're just gonna carry her legs and arms. And I remember just saying, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And the lady was just looking at me, and I'm locked in on her because I see the fear in her face too. And they take me back to the same hospital. And as we're getting wheeled in to the ER, the doctor is passing us, and he looked at me in shock, like, oh my God. He too was shocked about how I looked. And right away, they put me into OR. The other doctor who was going to do the surgery was writing my information on a napkin, on a piece of
wow.
napkin, as if there is
Wow.
no paper in the entire hospital.
Wow.
He
Wow.
pulled it out of his pocket nonchalantly, and I'm just like, I have oxygen.
Crazy. It's crazy, right?
And we get out of surgery. I'm sort of kind of waking up, and my husband is yelling at the nurse in the recovery, "Where's the doctor who did the surgery?" Like, I had to do a blood transfusion, emergency surgery, and the doctor was gone. He just left after surgery, didn't even talk to my husband, didn't tell us what to expect. They discharged me after a blood transfusion with a packet to read. And then,
About what it meant to have a blood transfusion?
yeah, and what to expect. Yeah.
Right. So
And then
now does your husband still have a problem with authority? He should not. He
yeah,
should just say, "No, I
we
want
almost
my wife to have
divorced
the blood."
after that. Yeah, that was a
Yes.
very, very big drop of the
Mhm.
ball. And I was for sure ready to divorce him after that. But
Yeah.
because he learned and was like, yeah, you know what? I'm so sorry that, this happened, and I will never argue with you again. I'm like, yeah, never again. Because I worked in a
Man,
hospital too,
wow.
so I knew firsthand, never take what they say as 100%. They are
That's right.
human, just like
That's right.
everyone else, and
That's
most of
right.
them are under
Absolutely.
so much stress and pressure. It's
That's right.
ridiculous. So
That's right.
you're 100% in saying that, and I would urge you to encourage other people to do the same.
I do.
No shot at our healthcare
Wow.
system, but yeah,
No,
you're
it's just
human
a
too.
human beings just like everybody else, and some person has an opinion on something based on the way they've been taught, and you know what, it might not be the right way. And you can talk
Yeah,
to somebody else, it's like, wow, that's the way I should go. But
yeah,
we don't want to question authority, and that's a bigger, broader question, questioning authority, and I think that's a good thing to do
yeah.
from
And
time to time.
back to what we said earlier, I think, the type of people that we are, very inquisitive and just not, I don't want, all people are smart, but I think our level of emotional intelligence will, and coming from trauma and struggle and challenge and the situation we were put in, we are able to read people, read situations, and then be able to speak up on it.
It's
Most
true.
people might feel uncomfortable with something and then never speak up on it, which,
Well, that's because of your background. That's because of
yeah,
the way you grew up, because you had to learn to be a chameleon, to understand what's happening, to adjust yourself based on situations. And most people never have to deal with that ever. So it allows you to relate to people better because you could understand a whole variety of people and change the way that you're talking to somebody based on who they are, not making them change to who you are. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I always say, when you're talking to people, it should be with interest and not so much about them getting to know you, but you getting to know them.
It's true. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, second to last question. I know I'm
Okay.
taking up a lot of your time,
Mhm.
um, but second to last question. What are two pieces of advice that you would give to an entrepreneur starting their journey?
Um, Yeah, it probably goes back to the things I mentioned earlier about the decide whether you want to be a big E entrepreneur or a small E entrepreneur. And there's no shame in admitting to yourself that you don't want to become this big E entrepreneur. It's going to take a life suck out of your life massively and affect your life in many different ways. And you want to just be a regular entrepreneur. So decide at some point which avenue you want to go down. If you want to be this biggie entrepreneur and want to make a difference in the world, um, make a huge impact, big impact, it's going to take a lot of commitment, and there will be sacrifices. You know, I hate to say this because it's not popular, but um, somebody was interviewing me about their a college that was offering this entrepreneur program, and I said, "Yeah, there's no such thing as a balanced life.
Yeah.
When you're going to try to be this biggie entrepreneur, you just don't have a balanced life. You're just basically working every single day as much as you possibly can to make something change, and it's got to be something inside of you. If you say, "Hey, I want to be a big entrepreneur, and I want to do this thing," but you're not passionate about it, you're just doing it for money, you'll never make it. If you're going to be this big E entrepreneur and make a big difference in the world, but you're also passionate about it and it's inside of you, absolutely do it, because that's what God gave to you. You have to go do this. If you're going to be this a smaller E entrepreneur, that's cool too. Be honest with yourself. Like, I just want to have, you know, 20 pizza shops here in Pittsburgh, and that's what I consider a successful entrepreneur. That's cool too. That's okay. You know, and I think each one of them are going to have some level of sacrifice. But the bigger E entrepreneur, man, you're going to have to sacrifice a lot, and you know, some people don't want to do that, and that's okay. Like, I talked to my son about this actually. He says, I could never do what you've done. I don't want to. I want to have a family. I want to work 9 to 5. I don't want the stress of it. I was like, you know, that's cool. That's fine. I love you the same. That's choosing life. You know, but that's what I would give advice to an entrepreneur. If you really want to make a change, you know, take what's given to you by God inside of you to drive you to do, to make change, and be committed to it, and commit a lot to it. And because of that, things in your life will have to sacrifice. You can't have this balanced life, working 6-hour days and working out for 2 hours and then doing all this stuff and then somehow make a difference in the world, because it's just too hard. It's just too hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then everybody would do it. You know,
Yeah,
everybody would
like
be the
everybody would be doing
successful
it.
biggie, biggie entrepreneur. Yeah,
Sure, that's right.
absolutely. It is a huge trade-off in
Yep.
lifestyle and huge sacrifice. Absolutely. You're
Yep.
absolutely right about that. Yeah. And to know that going in makes all the difference.
Yep.
Yeah. So last question, what does it mean to you to be a mill?
What does it mean to be a Milt? You know, I think being a Milt, I think about Milton Hershey, and I think about what he did. Again, he was an entrepreneur. So I reflect on his life and what he did, building the Lancaster Caramel Company, selling it, taking the proceeds and making something bigger, and also being philanthropic and being humble. He never pounded his chest. You don't hear very many audio clips. You don't read about him as being this overly self-focused, egotistical person. So I think being a Milt means, to me, you know, I was taught discipline, hard work, entrepreneurialism, um, philanthropy, and humbleness. And I think those were the things that I took from Milton Hershey School: the discipline, thinking about being an entrepreneur like Milton Hershey, giving back like he did, and then being humble. Those were the things I think I took, and I feel like, that's what Milts do, and I think lastly, is it goes with philanthropy, is like he gave us something. The Milts that I talk to care about each other. And so there's this level of caring, and it doesn't matter what color skin you have or what gender you are, whatever it is, we're all human beings and we all care about each other. And that's a good thing. And I think that was something that was taught to us through different ways in Milton Hershey School, and probably mostly taught to us by each other. Like, there wasn't like some edict that came down. It was just like how it was. And
Right.
um, I don't ever remember sitting around talking about my issues. We all had issues. We all kind of knew that we had issues, but we accepted each other for who we were. And that was pretty much it. So I think those are the things. Again, the humbleness, accepting people and differences that there are in the world, and just trying to make the place a better place.
Absolutely. Really well said. Yes. And I think that that level of caring, I think it happened through the the what we experienced going in, the shock of such a new environment, and then the setting. You're living in a home with these, I mean, living amongst each other is such a in such a small space, and then on top of that, going through challenges together, breaking bread together daily, reading devotions, which that's something we had to do. All of those things might not have like meant anything to us, I think, then, but I think mentally it was making an impact and we just didn't know it. And now as
Totally.
adults, we're even more like thirsty for that connection, because we see, at least I do, I look back and I'm like, wow, this was such a, they did really well in trying to mimic that family environment the best that they could. And
Mhm.
in that, it created like this level of connection between the students even after graduation.
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure. Well,
Yeah.
Zara, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so
Hopefully
much.
the podcast could inspire somebody somewhere.
I hope so.
Um,
That's the goal, is to inspire and motivate other Milts, and also to show off what, Milts are really made of. I think we're really incredible, powerful people. Just like Milton Hershey, our goal is to make sure that we do a lot of the same things, and same things that he taught us. We kind of do the same things. That's the goal.
well, you're incredible and you're powerful, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the attention you gave me today. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. And before I let you go, if you want to shout out any website, any social media
No, that's okay.
platform, you're
No.
good. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much, Jason.
All right.
And we will talk again soon.
We'll see you. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.